Have you ever wanted to get involved in real estate development, but didn't know where to begin? Do you think real estate development is only for the large hedge funds or major corporations, the big guys? Or have you done some development in the past and are looking to scale up? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then this podcast is for you. Welcome to the W.I.R.E.D Wealth and Real Estate Development Podcast. I am your host, Nick Smith. Get ready to have your mind blown and rewired as we discuss all aspects of creating wealth and real estate development. Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast. This is episode 15 of the Wealth and Real Estate Development Podcast, W.I.R.E.D, and I'm your host, Nick Smith. Welcome you all. Welcome. We got a great episode in front of us, but I definitely want to encourage everybody to like, share, and subscribe this. We just recently hit a milestone. We got over 100 downloads. So I'm proud of that. I'm happy of that. So we want to keep the momentum going here at W.I.R.E.D, where we build wealthy communities, wealthy families, and wealthy individuals through real estate development. I've got a special guest here with me today, gentleman that I met in virtue of business. Got Mr. Patrick Cailles, who is the Director of Sales and Marketing for Barrister Title. Barrister Title is a title insurance company that has 3 locations here in the Chicagoland area. And man, Pat is just a great guy. He's helped me out a lot on just various transactions and situations that I needed some assistance on. And title is one of those things that we're going to talk about it, but title is not one of the sexy aspects of real estate development. It's not one of those things. You're not going to see title companies on HGTV with reality TV shows and things like that. But it is so important to understand what title insurance is and to understand the role that title companies do play, because they can make or break you. Literally, they can make or break you in many different ways. So, Patrick, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Man, I definitely thank you. If you can give us an idea of what your background is, where you're from, before you got into title, what were you doing and kind of what your role is now in the title industry?
Awesome. Yeah. So originally, right out of college, graduated from Purdue University. I got into finance and was working in banking for quite some time. Got into the management field there, and then decided I wanted to kind of take that a step up and get into the financial planning field. So, went and got my extra licenses, the exams the SEC makes you pass. So there's a bunch of them. So went and got those and began my wealth management kind of part of my career, and was there for 6 years, did a lot of basic stuff all the way to estate planning and more in-depth planning in that sense. So I've seen a lot in that field, in that space. And it's taught me a lot from an aspect of what people know and what people don't, and what people are exposed to and what they're not exposed to. And it really is, when we talk about money, money is the biggest stress and also the biggest motivator for, let's say, most people. I mean, generally speaking, if you ask somebody what their biggest stress is, it's either family or money. And sometimes it's those two coincide really closely. So understanding that aspect has, changed my viewpoints on a lot of different things that maybe I hadn't thought about before. So it's been quite a journey in my career. And when I left doing that, it was actually not to leave the industry at all. I was the director of an internship program that I really, really enjoyed. I had a lot of success with, molding kind of the next generation of advisors. And I wanted to do that basically full time. And when I decided to do that, that was December of 19. And by March of 20, the world had changed just a slight bit.
Perfect timing, huh?
Yeah, wasn't exactly the best time decision that I could make, but I made that decision, and it turned out the way it did. The jobs I was interviewing for, the job I was about to accept, no longer existed, so that was fun. And, I ended up getting into this position that I am now. I had met the owner through bank that I used to work at. We used to funnel a lot of our lending business to Barrister. And when I saw him, he said, "Hey, you're talented, and if you're not getting back into that quite yet, come work for me." So I decided to, take a new avenue, a new approach, and here I am.
Nice, nice. So before we get to the title insurance piece,
Mhm.
just curious, with your financial wealth management background, what would you say out of your clients that did the best, financially, make good
Mhm.
financial decisions, set themselves up for later in life? What would you say if you had to boil it down to maybe the top three characteristics or practices that you saw? And if it's more than three, have at it. 3 to 5,
Sure.
I'd say. What were kind of those
Sure.
top characteristics that you saw out of those individuals that really thrived versus the ones that really didn't take advantage of the opportunities that were in front of them?
Right. I would say that's a great question, first of all. And I would say that the number one thing by far is discipline. It's very tough to be disciplined with money when you're, especially if you're in a situation where you're making, a decent amount of money that maybe you're not used to making. That's really the time when it's most important to be disciplined. I mean, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean don't spend any money on yourself. It doesn't mean don't buy the things that you like to buy. It's all about when you're utilizing those funds, are you understanding the opportunity cost of it? Are you understanding what could have been done or what could have been made with those dollars? And is the purchase that you're making or what you're spending your money on, is it worth or more valuable to you from an emotional standpoint or from a financial standpoint to give up what it could have done elsewhere, right? So a lot of people, and I'm not saying that this is either good or bad. It just a lot of people don't have that way of thinking about finances. They're not disciplined with them because they maybe don't see the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one of the things that I used to harp on. We would talk about all the things that they wanted in life, what they wanted to do in retirement, how much money would that take in retirement, what they've done so far, to really kind of establish that picture and that idea of what you want your life to be like, and then sticking to that. Not saying, "Hey, I want in my retirement to live on $20,000 a month," and yet you're saving 2% of your salary, and you
Right.
have, you know, 50 grand put away. That's not going to necessarily be a great outcome for you. So I would say discipline by far is number one. Number two, I would have to say understanding. A lot of people that I would talk to, both not in great financial situations and also in, you know, phenomenal financial situations as far as assets go. All of them, you could say for all of them, anywhere in that spectrum, that in understanding of what they were doing and why they were doing it usually was not there. They knew, all right, I can chase money, but when it comes down to what to do with the money, that was a big problem because, I would run into people that were making seven figures a year and had a savings account with, $800,000 in it, and that was their retirement. To where it was like, hey, let's work on this and figure out, where this money is going to, where it's flowing, and how do we make that more advantageous to you both now and in the future. So education is just enormous. If you have the discipline and you have the education, there's really not much that's going to stand in your way outside of, major massive events that maybe you didn't plan for, like title insurance kind of thing. Like, you have something that goes wrong and all of a sudden you owe a large sum of money for something that maybe you didn't even do or anticipate. And that's enough to put a dent in anybody's business. Yeah, but it's really about discipline, education, then finding somebody that you trust. There's always that. I think I ran across this a lot where I would sit down with somebody and I would be discussing their finances and so on and so forth. And you get to a recommendation phase of that relationship. And their mentality of what I did for a living was, along the lines of, thinking I was Gordon Gekko. from Wall Street. They thought I was day trading and everything was this underhanded type of transaction where, they just didn't have any idea that it's not really what we do. I wasn't a day trader. I was a planner. So, and really day traders, they're few and far between, and most of them are trading for corporations. They're not, one person's. A guy calls up like you see in the movies and say, hey, I got this move and this, and it usually isn't like that unless you're dealing with massive amounts of money. So finding that person that you trust and being open to the ideas that they present you, and if you find a good one, which is they're definitely out there, when you find a good one, it's really their proficiency in explaining to you why they're making the recommendations that they're making and how that kind of gets back to or couples with what you have already told them about your life and your wants and your needs, right? You have some people that have certain products that they like to sell because, let's say, there's a big commission on it or so on and so forth. That's a way to grow immediate business, not long-time business, not sustainable business. And those are the types of people that maybe sometimes can give advisors or wealth management advisors a bad name. But the good ones will listen to what exactly it is you want out of this relationship and then steer you in the right direction and be able to combine those two and relate it back to, hey, I'm making this suggestion based on what you told me here, 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 and here. And where there's a need in finance, whether it be title insurance, whether it be life insurance, whether it be 401ks, whatever it is, where there is a public need, there is a financial product to fit that need. It is the way it is. There is something out there that you can put in place to make sure that those needs are met. It's just the idea of, do I understand as a consumer if that need is something that I actually need, or is that just something that, wealthy people talk about because they're wealthy kind of thing? Right. There's a big disconnect there at times. And that was difficult sometimes to be able to, let somebody know in a way that wasn't pushy. Oh, hey, you need this. This is everything your plans are based on this simple, idea. And if you're not protecting that idea or growing that idea, then, you're not actually doing the things that you set out to do. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that you can go into with, or that I can go into with, the most successful people that I dealt with, or their investment strategies, or their strategies with what to do with liquid cash, or how do they, what they thought about leveraging different things to make money elsewhere, and how to actually set up the businesses, things like that when done proficiently, were very helpful. But that there's so many things in that list that make those type of people successful that I would probably boil it down to being disciplined, having a vision, and then knowing how to execute it with someone that you trust. And that comes from the education piece.
Gotcha. Do you think everybody needs a financial advisor or wealth advisor in their corner?
You know what? Absolutely. At least somebody to bounce ideas off of. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions of a lot of the public, is that, I don't have that kind of money, so I don't need somebody to, tell me what to do with it or tell me how to invest it, because I really don't have any money to invest, and that is a fallacy, in that every single time you talk to somebody that is, whether you can call them rich or well off or even wealthy, they all started somewhere, right? And it's one of those things where a lot of people don't ever start because they don't ever feel like there's a starting point. It's like someone that wants to get bigger and wants to build bulk or wants to lose weight, but they think, well, I'm never going to look like this person, or I'm never going to lose this much weight. Well, you're never going to understand it and know how to do it and know if it's possible until you jump in and establish some discipline and rules for yourself, and then start it somewhere. So yes, I do think everybody needs a financial advisor, or somebody that is, knows what they're talking about, at least in the beginning stages, to push you in the right direction. And that usually is an advisor.
Right. No, for sure. And I encourage everybody to take a listen to my past episode, immediately past episode 14, where I interviewed Brian McCloskey of Paradigm Life, and we talked about the concept of becoming your own bank through life insurance. Great episode around this piece, because no one person has all of the answers. I personally think, you should have a multitude of counselors around you, people that you can call on, and because different people have different expertise, and those different viewpoints and different expertise or expert areas help shape the way that we view things, and different answers, whether you don't have to agree with all of them. That's the thing.
Exactly.
You don't have to agree with everything, but some stuff is going to stick, some may not, but you'll never know that if you don't expose yourself to it.
Precisely.
One thing that I've kind of observed, from wealthy people and just people that have done well financially, is they look at wealth building from a two-way street, because there's the offensive side of it, and that is the investments that you make, whether you're investing in real estate, whether you're investing in the stock markets, mutual funds, various securities, some even Forex. I mean, there's a myriad of offensive moves that you can make. But then there's also the side of defense. There's a side of protecting your investments and protecting your weak sides, protecting your vulnerabilities. And that, to me, is where title comes into play when you're making real estate investments. It's one of the defensive things. And your words, being that you are in the title industry, what is title insurance? What is a title insurance policy? What does that do? Just kind of break it down as if I'm a fifth grader.
Okay, sounds good. So title, if you just go by the most basic idea of title, it's simply, it's a protection against, it's an indemnity insurance that protects against basically you being held liable or you losing financially because of past mistakes. It's making sure that what you're buying, and I mean, we're talking about real estate here, so whether it's a home or commercial property or whatever, most likely it's a big purchase, and it's a very important one. And you want to know as a consumer what it is that you're buying, and if it's exactly what somebody says that it is. And title insurance steps in and says, we're guaranteeing that the purchase that you're making is clean. It's exactly what it's represented to be. When oftentimes you and I both know, being in the industry, it's not always the case, right? And the last thing you want is to buy a property that you think the person who sold it to you was they were the ones that had the rights to sell the property, and then find out 4 different people own that property, and those 3 other people come back and say, we want our house. And that's when title insurance, if it closed, with a title policy, would say, all right, they're correct, and they pay those people out. But you can see how that would be a massive financial downfall if somebody did not have that in place. And that's one of the defensive things that you're talking about.
For sure. No, and I'll say this and just put it out there 100%. You do not have to. It's not by law required to get title insurance when you purchase a property. Now, if a lender's involved, generally they're going to require it. If any type of lender or if any type of investor is involved, they're going to require it. So in that case, yeah, you have to. But if you're paying cash for a piece of property, you don't have to. But would I ever advise you not to get title insurance? 100% no. I would never, ever, even if I have to pay for the policy. And I've had to do that on properties that I bought, because typically here in Indiana is different in various states, but typically here in Indiana, even in Illinois, it's typical that the seller pays for a owner's title policy, just saying, hey, I'm conveying this property to you free and clear of any liens, encumbrances, all of those legal jargon words. It's free and clear. But I've had cases, and you have some cases where some sellers do not want to pay for that. And if they don't, I say, okay, I'll buy it myself. Because
Right.
you don't ever want to get in a position where you bought a property and now 6 months, 3 months, 2 months down the road, like Patrick said, you got owners coming out of the woodwork, or even not even owners. There could be lien holders against the property
Yes.
that come out of anywhere, everywhere. And if that stuff is not searched, it will and can come back to haunt you. And I'll give you a good example. Les Brown, who is one of the most notable public speakers, motivational speakers of our day. Everybody knows Les Brown. But he bought a property for his mother, and I can share it because he shared it on multiple of his videos. He bought a property for his mother. That was always his dream, to buy a house for his mother. He bought a house for his mother. It was in a nice, beautiful neighborhood. It was everything. Had his mother moved in. She's happy. Everybody's happy. All of a sudden, a guy comes out of the woodworks, says that he had a lien against this property, and I want this property. I want it back because I had a lien on it. And guess what? Les Brown did not do a title search. He did not get title insurance when he bought that property, and he had to let go of the property. He lost the property. This is how serious title insurance can be. You can lose a property if title
Absolutely.
issues come up that are detrimental to a property. You can lose a property, and I'm sure Patrick has horror stories that he can share, and please feel free to share some cautionary tales here as to what are some of the dangers that you've seen with people who have closed that did not buy title insurance or did not get it.
Yeah, and you see it, to be honest, you see it far more often than people understand. And it's just like anything else, we think I got car insurance, but I never use it. So this is, this is scam, or I shouldn't even be paying for this, but you don't see the things that actually do happen. And really it goes back to, are we protecting the foundation of our financial stability, or are we kind of winging it? I've seen there was one that I saw where a person was living in this house for maybe 10, 12 years. It was a farm, or a smaller farm, some kind of, I don't know if they were raising animals or actually planting crops or whatnot, but this person had lived there with his parents, took the farm over when they had passed away. And it was kind of just an understood thing. And then he got a little older, sold, wanted to sell the place or whatnot. And the brother of the guy who owned the property, who they hadn't seen or talked to, who was estranged and so on and so forth, came back years later and was like, you sold this property, but it wasn't yours to sell because it was never in writing that you were the sole heir of this property.
Wow.
And by law, it goes down to, the bloodline. So this guy, he did have title on it. I think title had to pay basically whatever the price of 50% of the sale was to the other gentleman in question. And
but had he not had that title insurance policy,
he would have been paying for it. And most of the time, what does that mean? That means selling the property and paying somebody out, and now nobody's got the property, and you're sitting there wondering how did this happen? And if you have that's a significant amount of money, no matter how much it is, to be able to, or to have to pay somebody out financially that you weren't expecting, and it could be just massive amounts of money. Another thing you see a lot is liens, like even new build properties. Not everybody is the most trustworthy person in the world. Okay, let's just be honest. That's the world we live in. And it can be, a crew of workers that never got paid, and they have full right to put a lien on that property. And, then it gets sold and the person thinks, well, they're not going to put a lien on it. I'm going to unload it. That's not how it works. Right. So you can have liens, all kinds of liens for, medical or IRS, or, just mechanic liens like that will cause let's just say a headache if you will, in trying to do whatever it is that the consumer is trying to do, which a lot of times is either living in the house or creating a business inside, that location. And there's significant problems and significant financial consequences to not doing your due diligence and putting that clean title in place.
And you hit on new construction, and
Mm-hmm.
and of course, my show is geared toward aspiring developers, even current developers. But for the ones that aren't aware, what should a developer get from a general contractor, even their subs? What should they be getting? Once the project has been paid in full, once the project, even milestones, what should they be getting to document that this contractor cannot come back on me to place some liens on this property?
Absolutely. So in that sense, you always want to get what's called a lien release,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that, it's basically whoever, let's say I was working on building this house and I've gotten paid and everything is kosher. I want to make sure as the owner of that property, I'm giving me, the worker, the worker is going to give that person a lien release, which says I was fairly paid, blah, blah, blah. I can no longer, I forfeit my right to put a lien on this property, which happens all the time,
Mm-hmm.
all the time. Like during a construction of, let's say, a hotel, right? Most likely, there's going to be somewhere along the line, some vendor, some plumber, some electrician, some company somewhere that was like, well, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And they'll try and put a lien on the property.
Mm-hmm.
And that has to be dealt with. And a lot of times, we don't think about those things, but you want to get a lien release from the people who do work to basically put in stone that, hey, I paid you for services rendered, and you no longer have, the opportunity or the right to put a lien on this property.
Right, for sure. And my recommendation is you should get partial lien releases along the way, not because you
Yes.
can just get it at the final. You can get a final sworn construction statement. You can get your final lien release waiver, but you should be getting those lien release waivers partially through the project, because by the end of the project, you never know what happened. You guys could be at odds. You could be mad at each other. And if you don't have that stuff as you're going through the process, it can make the development stall. I've seen development stall because of those liens. And a lot of times, in order to get projects going, they'll just end up paying them out at closing just to make it go away.
That's exactly right. I also knew somebody once they did, what do you call it, stucco. So they were actually doing a couple different hotels. And at one point, the windows had come in for this hotel, and the windows were incorrectly shaped according to, like, the what the company wanted. And it was a chain, so it all needed to look exactly the same, right? So there was a company that subcontracted these stucco people, and they started shaving down, because stucco is just styrofoam. So before you put the paste or the concrete or whatever on it, and they were shaving down these windows one by one. Well, there were 800 of them, and that took probably 3 weeks to do. Problem with that was that it was the subcontractor's mistake that ordered the wrong windows. The subcontractor then went to his team that he had hired out and said, "Well, just shave them down." Well, the subcontractor got let go. And during that time, he was asking for lien releases from the crew that was doing the stucco. And they weren't well versed in this kind of thing. And they were signing lien releases. And when it came down to it, that person had got let go, the subcontractor, without telling the crew that they hired. And when the crew that they hired was looking for the next stipend to pay out these 25, 30 workers, the builders of the hotel, the whole thing, were like, "We can't pay you. You have to go to the person who subcontracted," and we fired him. And at that point, they had already signed lien releases. So that person ended up paying, $150,000 in payroll, employee payroll, to get nothing in return. And he could have just walked away from that. So it would have been, you're you're screwing over workers and dealing with lawsuits there, or you're doing the right thing and paying the workers and hoping that you can take something up with the person who hired you, but they had already, filed the lien release or signed the lien releases. And, that's an expensive lesson.
That's very expensive. That's
Right.
tuition. That's tuition that you don't want to necessarily have to pay.
You better believe it.
For sure, for sure. So I know another avenue of getting properties. Again, we're talking about, commercial property, residential, even land.
Mm-hmm.
In episode previously, I had attorney Crystal Johnson on, and we talked about tax sale process. About because tax sale process is a nationwide thing. I mean, every county, city, they all have their own process of purchasing properties at the tax sale. Typically speaking, the properties that you get at a tax sale do not come with clean title. There are some type of defects, in the title. What can somebody do on the front end? Because of course, when you purchase the property, the title is not quote unquote insurable most of the time. But
right.
On the front end, if somebody is seriously interested in purchasing a property at a tax sale, what is something that they should be doing to at least get a initial idea as to the condition of the title on that property?
So I deal with several people that are in that circle. Do a lot of in that area, and one thing that seems common is they'll contact me and just say, "Can you do a prelim on this address?" And we can basically look up that property, run a title search on it, and it'll detail, all the different owners, all the different deeds that have been filed, all the liens, the lien history on the place. It'll tell you, there's foreclosure proceedings or tax lien proceedings that are going on with the place. So at least you have, because a lot of times these are all sight unseen, right? It's you buy them without really, you can see them maybe once and you don't really know much about it. But at least at that point, all right, is this worth the 10 grand that I'm going to pay out? Because I might not even be able to clear title and therefore can't even sell this thing. Right. So a lot of people will do their due diligence and have a titles history search and these types of things run before they even start bidding on a project. So they have an idea of what they're going to have to do to make it legit and make it sellable.
Gotcha. Is there typically a cost for that? And if so, what are kind of the range that people can expect to pay for that type of title search?
It depends on how in depth it goes. And I guess it also probably depends on the relationship that you have with the title company, to be honest, because, they're not simple searches, they're highly detailed, but it's not the full on title search, but it gives you the information you want. And I do those for clients at no cost. You can put in a prelim title, which is where it's the full on, title search, so on and so forth. And the only cost to that is if you end up doing the deal and it doesn't go to us to close it. If you want me to do a prelim on an address, I do that prelim, you end up buying it and you use a different title company, then we're stuck holding the bag for, I think it's maybe $100, $150 that we have paid to do that search. And then somebody uses somewhere else. But if they come to us, which is 99% of the time they do, why else would they come to you for a prelim and go somewhere else? But if they're coming to us to close that deal, it doesn't cost anything. It's just a smart idea.
Oh, that's good. What would you say, again, got a lot of real estate investors, aspiring investors and aspiring developers listening. What would you say the benefits are? Because a lot of times people, when it comes to title, a lot of investors are not loyal when it comes to title. They'll go wherever,
right.
And for various reasons. But what would you say are the benefits of establishing a good working relationship with a title company for your business?
So there's a lot of aspects to that, to be honest. But I guess simply put, it's just like establishing a relationship with anybody else you do business with. There's a trust factor there. They know you, they know your business, they know what you're looking to do, they know the basics on how you usually transact business, and they're able to snuff things out sometimes where, yeah, I know this person operates like this, and I see that this might not fit that mold. And so they're able to be a backup for that person and be like, hey, I just want you to know that this isn't normally what you do. And we should, you should look into that. And that's a huge advantage for an investor simply because there's so much stuff, right? And if
Right.
I'm trying to be an investor and run this business and I'm out there networking and looking for properties, the last thing I want is some, line item somewhere in this contract to be something that costs me a lot of money. And if I have a title company that is, has intimate knowledge of what I do in my business, they're going to know the things to look for. And they're also able to do I don't want to say outside the lines, but they're able to, if they understand what the business is, there's certain gray areas that like, okay, this does make sense. This isn't as much of a red flag as it would be if I didn't know the nature of what this business is doing. And really it's just like anything else, to be honest. It's finding somebody that you trust. Not only do they know your business, but you know that what is being done and what you're paying for is being done right, efficiently, and in a manner that you're happy with. And sometimes that's not always the case. It's kind of like being at a restaurant, if you will. Like if I go to the same restaurant, order the same thing every time, it's probably going to be on point exactly how I ordered it.
Right.
Where if I'm ordering something different from all different places all the time, I'm not always going to get the top of the line, freshest, hottest, whatever quality that I'm looking for. So that relationship is key, and that's what I do a lot of.
For sure, man. No, it's invaluable. And I'll even say this, with having relationships with good title company, a lot of investors, have difficulty with finding deals, finding property, getting property ownership information. I mean, of course, we have the county data, but that's time consuming, if you have to look up every individual property. But if you establish relationships with a good title company, such as Barrister, such as with Patrick. I mean, some of those title companies, they can pull that information. They have access to aggregate information and spreadsheets, that they can pull, and they can give you some information. You give them a criteria of what you're looking for, whether it's land or whether it's commercial property, strip malls, whatever it is, and they can spit back out a list. So, there's value in establishing those relationships. And again, title is not the most sexy part of the real estate transaction. I'll reiterate that, but it is critical. It's critical.
Right.
If you want to be a for real investor, for real developer, anybody to take serious in the real estate industry, you have to know and you got to understand title. That's just 100%.
Right.
You got to know it.
It's the base. It's the base. It's when you're building a giant house, the sexiest part is picking out all the the awesome front door, the windows, or I'm gonna have a waterfall coming from the second story, whatever the case may be. That's the fun part of it. The title is pouring the concrete.
Right.
Title is this house is going to be level, and it's not going to fall over. It's those types of things that often get overlooked, because they don't have that sex appeal, right? But you can't build something true and something strong without the foundation.
For
And
sure.
it's like that for most everything, financial planning included. People want to be rich, but they don't want to set the bases up for how to get there. They want to jump from spot one, to spot 10, but spot 1 and 2 aren't that attractive. But to get to spot 10, you have to have spot 1 and 2 taken care of.
For sure. Man, we're coming up on time, and I said I was not going to keep you too long. But being that you are in your position, people don't realize how many transactions, title companies are privy to, and how many people walk in and out of their doors every day for different closings and various questions, things like that. I'm just curious from your viewpoint where you sit right now where we sit in the market. Of course, we know interest rates have gone up, but in our area, demand still seems to be pretty strong. We can't say that for everywhere, and in the country. But I'm just curious, what trends are you seeing, whether it's, relocation trends, where people are moving in from, what trends are you seeing in the market, and where do you think the market is headed?
Sure. So really the biggest things that we're seeing during the slowdown, right, is I think there's a hesitation to buy at times
Mm-hmm.
because of rates, but I think that is fleeting simply because we have a tendency as a majority, as a group of people, to take kind of hype, and you can see that in today's landscape of whether it be money or politics or whatever, that we go so far in one direction that we think, oh, this is the end of all things. Where if we actually sit back and look at it from a diagnostic standpoint, over the last 40 years, the average interest rate for a mortgage is 7.1%.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we're at 7% now, 7.25, 6.75, somewhere around there. I think it's coming to the point where people are realizing, oh, this isn't out of the ordinary, right? Because that hype has kind of died down about, oh, interest rates are crazy. They were crazy when they were 2.75%, right? Nobody stops putting into their 401k when the market is down. They know things are cyclical and things are always going to be good for one side of people in a certain economic stature. And it's going to be a downside for other people, whether it's savings or borrowing, right? High rates, people that don't need lending love that because they love getting interest on, there's better deals on annuities or even simple savings accounts. Whereas, you look at the early 80s and people that wanted to buy a car were paying 19%. Mortgage rates were 13, 14, 15, 16% even.
Right.
So I think that after the initial shock, it has begun to wear off. We're really seeing people get back into the buying phase because people are always going to move. And, whether they're relocating, whether it's a divorce or a marriage or upsizing or downsizing, people are always going to need homes. I think the biggest thing that we're seeing in today's society is the lack of inventory, which I'm sure you have experienced for a while. And that goes simply to we're just not building the number of houses that we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. As a matter of fact, we're building, I think, maybe 40% over the last, few years. We're so far behind in delivering on the supply that the demand is still very, very high around here, especially. I believe I was looking at something the other day, reading something, and it said this time 10 years ago we had, or maybe it was 5 years ago, I think it was 10. This date 10 years ago, we had in all of Northwest Indiana, let's say, I think it was 7,200 properties, but let's say 7,000, just as an estimate. Whereas now it's like 2,200.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not seeing the increase in builders building as we did a while back. And so therefore, what happens when you decrease the supply of something economically? The price is going to go up because the demand is going to be sky high. And now if I'm a seller, I can charge anything I want, well, within reason, but anything I want for my house, because I know that you can't get it anywhere else. And a lot of that also comes back to the fact that we're no longer building like things like townhomes and condos. You don't see those going into subdivisions. And a lot of that is people in the cities and the city governments that are saying, well, we only want single family homes, and we don't want townhomes, and we don't want this and that, which is the foundation of first time home buyers.
Right.
You graduate from college and you get a real job and you're making some money, you save up for a little bit. You're not in the market to buy a $650,000 single family home.
Right.
What you are in the market for is to buy a $200,000 townhouse. Those don't exist anymore. And they're not being resupplied because for some reason people aren't on board with having, affordable housing, which, there's arguments, of course, there's always arguments on both sides, but a lot of it just comes down to where's the most amount of bang for my buck going to go? How am I going to get the most bang for my buck when I'm building these places, when I'm selling these places? And unfortunately, that doesn't always fit with the needs of many, right? It might fit the need of certain people. It's not going to fit the needs of many. And when the needs of many are not being seen and heard, and there aren't measures put into place that gets those voices heard, you'll see a lot of the things that we're seeing now: skyrocketing prices, right? Your demand being sky high, your supply being low, because the voices of many are not being looked at as this is an issue. But when you're going to look for a house, and the house that you could have bought 3 years ago for 250 grand is now 525 grand, that's a byproduct of the masses being kind of set aside, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. No, it is. This lack of supply has been something we've been grappling with for probably the last, I know at least 5 years.
Yeah.
Which is why I think, this is a perfect opportunity. It's a perfect storm for developers, because
without
really,
question.
And this is across the nation, we really need more supply. It's not that we want it, or we think we need it. No, we really need more supply in the market, to make it a truly balanced and efficient market, so
yeah.
Definitely
especially around here. I mean, I think in that same report I looked at the hottest developing areas in the country, mind you, and the top 3 were in Indiana. The number 1 spot was West Lafayette, Indiana, and there were a couple other Indiana spots right behind it. So if we don't come to the table and figure out how to, continue to up the development of our area, then people will eventually find other places to go. 100%. Let's be honest.
No, Indiana I always tell people, Indiana is not, when we talk about not being sexy, Indiana is not one of those sexy states either.
Right.
It's just not. I mean, you're not going to see what goes on in Florida and just a lot of these other Texas, happen in Indiana, but Indiana has been, for the last several decades, really been making good financial decisions, on the state level. And, Indiana is poised to grow, which is why I'm not trying to leave anytime soon, man. So definitely appreciate your time. Definitely appreciate your expertise and your insight, man. If people wanted to get in touch with you, what would be the best way for people to get in touch with you? If they have any title questions, need any title reports run, how can they get in contact with you?
Easiest way is either call or shoot me a text. My number is, which I'm sure you can give out as well, but it's 765-414-0276. And they could always email me too. It's just patrick@barristertitle.com. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or, if you need some prelims done or you need some title work done, by all means. We specialize in making that moment for your clients as special as possible. The office is gorgeous, which, believe it or not, is hard to come by. We try and make people feel like it is what it is, and that is a huge day for them. We do champagne toasts at closings. A lot of people are excited and they're taking pictures and so on and so forth. So it's a good environment, and we like to make it feel like, hey, this is a big day, because it is. But yeah, they can reach out to me anytime via cell, shoot me a text, probably the quickest way to get a return, or reach out via email, or you could always stop by the office too, or at the corner of 30 and Klein in Cherville.
Good deal, man. Well, it has truly been a pleasure. Again, I thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on, and you have added a tremendous amount of value to my audience, and we're going to keep it going, sir.
Sounds good. I had a lot of fun. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Good deal, man. Well, again, this is episode number 15 of the Wealth and Real Estate Development Wired podcast. I'm your host, Nick Smith. Thank you guys for tuning in on today, where we're building wealthy communities, wealthy families, and wealthy individuals through real estate development. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe. I definitely encourage and implore, like, share, subscribe these episodes, whether you're listening on YouTube, watching on YouTube, or listening wherever you listen to podcasts. Definitely appreciate the support. As I mentioned earlier in this episode, we recently reached over 100 downloads. So I'm proud of that. And I want to definitely continue to see it grow for sure, for sure. Well, thank you all. And again, let's go get wired up. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please share this content with someone else who would benefit from it. I'm looking forward to having you with me on the next episode. Now go out and create some wealth and real estate development.